Hello and welcome everyone. Uh, Again, we are here for inquiries about Canadian immigration, visiting Canada, studying in Canada, UK, and even Australia. And you can ask questions about all these topics. The questions can be in general in nature. We may not be able to answer questions which are very specific to your own scenario, and we may not be able to give you an advice which is pertaining to your own immigration. Like we do not want to be into a relationship of a client and an immigration consultant. However, we will endeavor to provide general advice, and we will endeavor to provide as accurate information as it can be. And this session and all the information shared in this session can only be taken as education purposes only, and it does not constitute any right or obligation in a legal manner between the viewers and me. So I will be happy to answer your questions. You can write down your questions in the comments, and I will try to answer these questions one by one. We also have some questions which have been asked in the past, and most of the frequent questions that have been asked by us by people can what is the best route and what is the quickest route of immigrating to Canada? There is no specific answer because the timeline for each pathway or each immigration stream varies and differs. Some processes or some procedures of the pathways can take up to 2 years. Some take more than that, and some take around a year or so. But it depends upon the profile, the stream, and the documentation available for a particular client. The timeline of the immigration applicant or the application for immigration can never be fixed. It is always variable. Some applications are processed in a more quick manner, and some applications are processed in a slower way by the immigration department, depending upon the complexity of the case, depending upon the satisfaction of the visa officer or the dealing officer, and depending upon your, of course, country of origin. Different things do contribute, different factors contribute towards this. While I should must say that in general, Canadian immigration can take from 1 to 2 years for skilled, provincial, and business-oriented streams, while the pathways that pertains to self-employment or similar streams may take more than 3 years from a country like Pakistan. I have seen the applications for express entry immigration pathways to be processed very quickly or as little as in a few weeks, and I have seen people whose applications have been taking more than a year even after having a nomination or an invitation, and their decisions are being rendered in a year even more. So there are many crucial factors which contribute towards the process timeline, how accurate, complete, and genuine the application is, how much satisfaction does the visa officer has, what is the tendency of the country, and all this stuff. So a year to 2 or 2.5 is just the normal timeline for an immigration applicant. Another very burning question that is often asked um, by many clients is that what is the chances of approval after receiving an ITA from Federal Government of Canada? Once you receive an invitation to apply, the chances of being rejected are very minor. In most of the cases, or very most of the cases, the application for permanent residency after receiving an ITA, the application is always successful if you have provided all the truthful answers, if you have provided all the required documents, and if you have been showing the documentation in the same way as it is required by the immigration authority. Immigration officers do not tend to refuse immigration cases based on their judgment, but they are most likely expected to uh, consider applications for permanent residency on factual basis. Even if there is any doubt on a particular document that you have supplied, the immigration officers have a routine of submitting you um, a procedural fairness letter, or they may call you for an interview. Like if they feel something is not right with your application, or that you may have not provided the very good application, or there are concerns that may not been justified or that have not been verified by the immigration itself or himself or herself, they are required and they generally submit or ask you for an interview, and they try to clarify their confusions, concerns, doubts, and whatever issues they may have with your file during that interview. So you will never be, you don't get rejected straight away, that that the visa officer is not satisfied that you are a genuine applicant for immigration. Rather, they will always try to look into the documents. They will always strive to see how accurate documentation is, how truthful the answers that you have provided, and how ambiguous the case file that you have submitted is. And if they have any doubts, concerns on your application, documentation, and anything like that, they are required to conduct your interview or give you a chance in a written form to hear from you. And this chance will be to clarify the doubts that the visa officer had. So without listening or hearing you, visa officers do not refuse your immigration applications. Another question that is asked: do I have the right to appeal for an immigration application if you feel that your application has been refused, but it has been refused unfairly, or that it has not been refused on the merits of your application, or weren't any reasons or any substantial reason for the officer to review your application, you always have the right to appeal. And if you can prove that the visa officer made a mistake, your appeal is likely to be, or your application is likely to be reassessed by some different officer. And if you prove the mistake is made by the first immigration officer, you are likely to have the officer's visa decision turned in a reverse way. So this is a very transparent system in Canadian immigration. I have another question which asks that what if someone is caught submitting a false or non-genuine document? If someone is found to be providing a document that has not been genuine, that has been altered, that has been fake, or that has some concerns about its verification, Canadian immigration laws and immigration rules are very strict about this and any documentation that is not genuine, it can result in a ban on the person. So the ban can be for 5 years, and you may be abstained from applying for any Canadian visa for a period of 5 years, depending upon the severity of the misrepresentation, the fake document, or the ingenuine documents that you may have supplied. Again, the visa officer will always be very, very vigilant, and they will try to hear you in an immigration application before even refusing your application for non-genuine documentation. They will try to ask you questions, and they will give you the chance to have your say before they make their final decision. Another question which is asked by many people is that can I move from one province to another? For example, an applicant was nominated by Nova Scotia, and he has landed in Nova Scotia, but it's not been very fruitful for him. It's been hard for him to find a job there, and it's been harsh on him to survive like that, and that environment has not been very feasible for him in a particular place. Once you have landed in Canada as a permanent resident, you have your free will, you have your every right to live in any province or territory of Canada. Under no circumstances, your PR card can be withdrawn by a province because it was issued by a federal government. So it is the obligation of the province to provide you such a resourceful environment and such an environment that you would like to live in that environment. And if the province cannot provide you that environment and somehow you do not survive in a particular province, yes, you have every liberty, freedom, and right to move to some other place. And there will not be any negative consequences to your permanent residency. You are a resident or permanent resident of Canada and not of any other province. Of course, this does not apply to the same liberties are not being enjoyed by people who are on work permits or who are on temporary visas. This liberty is in majority for those people who have a permanent residence card and who are not on a temporary resident permanent or temporary resident visas. So once you land in Canada and once you receive your PR card, you are good to go wherever you want to. You are good to live wherever you want to. You should, though, in a moral sense, try to remain in a province which has nominated you and try to settle yourself and your family into the same province. And this is just a moral obligation. We have a question, and that says, please tell me the processing time for visit visa of Canada. Visiting Canada has always been the top priorities for many people. The processing time varies from one country to another country, and again, it does vary from one application to the other as well. So I must say that processing time varies. Some places and some embassies are very quick. Some visa processing offices are not as quick because of the workload. For Pakistan, right now it's around the turnaround time for a decision is quite quick. I have seen in the past few weeks the decision has been made in 2 to 3 weeks. However, it can take longer than that as well. Pakistan applicants are getting their decisions in 2 to 3 or maximum 4 weeks time for majority of the applications. This may not be the case with all and every applications. And applicants from the US, they have different timelines. applicant from India, Bangladesh, and other countries, they may have their own different processing times for different categories of applications. But for Pakistan, visa applications can take up to a few weeks, ideally 2 to 3 weeks time. And it also depends heavily on which portal or which method of application that you have used. I have seen that the applications submitted through the GC key can take up to longer times, but the applications that have been submitted through to visitor portal and the receiving times are a lot quicker in this scenario. I hope I have answered the questions. Another question people ask me, which is very okay. So I'm pretty much of the view that everyone should not file their visitor visas to Canada. Only those who have strong Pakistan ties, who have strong reason to visit, and who can really afford to visit Canada should be applying. Because if we say, or if we ask about the visa rate, I would say it's very, 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 very rare, very less. I mean, not everyone gets a visa. Hardly a few people from a bunch of people obtain the visitor visas or to obtain the approval to get a visitor visa of Canada. And especially in Pakistan, there are a lot of refusals, and these refusals are due to the fact that there have been a practice by many consultants or the ghost consultants to provide non-genuine documents, and too many applications are submitted by the applicants. Those people who even do not have a strong purpose, they tend to apply, but as a result, they get a rejection quite soon. So the rate for approval of the visitor visa is it's not very high. On the same time, the quality of the applications and the genuineness of the applicant does matter, and it does have a lot of it does have a lot to do with it. It has a lot to do with like how the application was, who made the application, what documents provided. These factors also contribute to the chances of getting your successful Canadian visitor visa. I hope I have answered your question as well. During the pandemic, your question regarding the answer of your question, how can we change the status of a visitor visa to a work permit? So during the pandemic, it was a routine, and it was a very public policy that it was made very easy for the visitors to apply for a work permit and have it changed while they were working or living in Canada. It is still possible, but it is only possible in a very small and occupations, and it has been over the period of time made difficult more and more. So yes, a few people can get their visitor visas changed into a work permit, but there is not a lot of choice. Only a few handful occupations are eligible for this. So you have to check what LMEA or what job offer do you have, and what is the code for the same, and if you can qualify for the same or not. So it's possible, but the chance, I mean, it depends upon your NOC and the job. How much bank statement is required for a Canadian visitor visa? Well, it depends again on how many people are traveling, how many days or weeks or months you will want to spend in Canada. Where are you living in Canada? Is it a homestay? Is it a hotel, or your sponsor has provided you with the accommodation? So, in a general sense, your statement or bank statement should have sufficient finances to cover your traveling, lodging, fooding, and all other needs during your stay in Canada. If your sponsor in Canada is committing to the Canadian Immigration Department that they will be maintaining accommodation and all the other expenses for you. You may apply for the visa even with a small bank statement. But if you have to bear all the expenditures of your trip, I believe having 3 to 5 million should be the very starting level for a single applicant. There is no limit for how much you can submit or have in your bank account. It can be a million to many millions or a billion, or there is no limit for that. But ideally, 3 to 5 million should be available for a person who wants to stay here in Canada for a few weeks and who wants to spend time in Canada for tourist purposes. I hope I have answered the questions. People, can we get a job on a visit visa? So what I'm understanding from your question is that can I search a job in Canada, and if someone selects me in Canada, will they be able to provide me with a job, and can I be able to transfer the same job from like visitor to worker? So yes, you can apply for the jobs and you can seek your jobs while you are in Canada. And if someone is willing to sponsor you, provide you with the work permit while you are in Canada, you can even transfer your visitor visa to your work permit. It takes time, but it is very possible, and there is only a very handful occupations that are allowed to have this conversion within the Canada. In many cases, you have to return back to your home country, apply your work permit from there. However, if you are a U.S. citizen or if you are in Canada, you can definitely have your visitor visa to Canada to a work permit by doing the flag pooling, we call it, or even by applying another public policy. So it is possible, but as the COVID has gone and as the trend we see very few applications for the same within the Canada. When you are a visitor, there is no need to have any language requirements. You do not need to provide a language score. However, for your immigration and in many cases for your work permit, you are required to submit your language skills, which again varies depending on the time. Yes, you may now ask me more questions. I have also been asked that can I or someone else provide any applicant with an invitation letter. I must say that we are not able to provide, or anyone else is not able to provide any invitation letters to any client. Invitation letters should only be issued by relatives by your relatives who are living in Canada, and by any other friends or sources that you may have. Sometimes the invitation letters can be written by the commercial companies. For example, if you are going to join a cruise ship from Atlantic to Europe, and you don't have a visa for Canada, yes, your shipping company may provide you with a letter or supporting documents to submit for your visa. So it's like so can we renew our visit visa from Canada? Renew. Okay, normally the visitor visa for Canada is issued for 10 years, so there may not be a very dire need to renew it while you are in Canada. However, in some cases, when your passport does not have a validity of up to 10 years, the visa will only be issued for the 10 years. There is a very critical thing about the visa and the duration of the visa. Your visa does not guarantee you entry into Canada. your visa does not guarantee you for how long you can stay. It is the visa officer at the border who will assess your personal circumstances and who will tell you how long you can stay in Canada. So it is the officer who always decide which which is the right time or right number of days that the applicant needs to have his her purpose to be in Canada finished. And once it is, you are expected to leave the country. If you really need to, for example, for some certain circumstances, you need to renew your visa, and you cannot leave Canada before the expiry of the visa, you can always apply for a visitor card. And a visitor card is something when you try to renew your visitor visa. It's called visitor card, and yes, once the application is successful, you can have more days to live in Canada without returning back to your country. Honestly, I cannot answer any questions related to asylum here because all these circumstances are different with every person. Asylum cases takes different scenarios and different people, different stories. So I personally do not recommend anyone to apply for asylum if they have a nationality and if they belong to some country where they can be protected. Only those people who are vulnerable and who cannot protect themselves and whose geography is hard to be living there, yes, they may claim their asylum, but again speaking, it has to be a legitimate claim and it should not be something other than that. Okay, so college or university doesn't make any difference. But the best thing that you remember or studying in Canada, you should always try to study in a public funded institutions. You should not be studying in a private institution. You can always get your visas even for the private institution, but for the benefits of future, you are expected to be studying uh, in a public institutions. They do have post-study work permit and other benefits that you will enjoy from the time to time. We will take a little break here, and I will try to come back again after some time, and I will be happy to answer your questions.